Welcome back, my wonderful listeners. Kate never knew her parents. They gave her up right after she was born. She spent her childhood in an orphanage. Her social circle was small. She was sweet, careful, and tried to avoid situations where she could get hurt. As she grew older, things got more difficult. Living with the same people for years wasn't easy. You get used to them, but tensions still rise. Miss Mary, one of the caretakers, became Kate's closest friend and mentor. Miss Mary had split from her husband after she couldn't conceive. The treatments were expensive, and as a single woman, she simply couldn't afford them. In little Kate, she saw a part of herself. She grew attached and was always there when the girl needed support. In many ways, Kate saw her as a mother. Someone she could open up to, someone she trusted completely. When Kate left the orphanage, she was scared of the adult world. There were too many people absorbed in their own problems, too much rudeness and coldness. She had to learn to ignore certain harsh aspects of human nature, figure out safe routes home, and build relationships in an unfamiliar world. Miss Mary helped her find a small apartment. It was in terrible condition, bare walls, warped floors, and a front door that barely held shut. But Kate had no money to improve it. Not wanting to be forever indebted to her mentor, she started working at the market. But the job didn't work out. Kate was too shy and soft-spoken. Loud, pushy vendors always talked over her, promoting their products. Customers took out their frustrations on her, and some refused to pay, accusing her of selling bad goods. She didn't know how to shortchange them, and even if she did, her conscience wouldn't allow it. Eventually she had to quit. Miss Mary offered a new idea. "Why don't you work for a housekeeping company? One of my former students works there as an admin. It's honest work. You just keep things clean and neat. Each visit is paid. You discuss the details directly with the client." Kate agreed. "It's nothing complicated. As long as I'm honest, I can do this." Her first client was a wealthy businessman named Mr. Michael. He was around 60. His wife had recently died of cancer. They fought hard against the disease, spent tons of money, tried every treatment. But nothing helped. Now it was just him and his son Dan. Dan was in his 3rd year at university, but showed no promise. A spoiled rich kid, born with a silver spoon, who lived off his dad's wealth. He flaunted luxury gifts, drove a flashy sports car, and spent freely on his father's credit card. He never thought he'd have to earn his own money. In his eyes, his dad's fortune would last for generations. Mr. Michael was still grieving. He didn't have the emotional strength to discipline his son. He wanted to teach him responsibility, but guilt always held him back. Dan was all he had left. Kate cleaned Mr. Michael's home daily. He liked order. She worked hard, never slacked off, and kept every corner spotless. He trusted her so much that he didn't mind her being near the safe. He knew she'd never steal. But things with Dan were different. At first, he tried to be friendly, told funny stories, trying to make the shy girl smile. Then he crossed the line. "You sure you want to be a maid?" he asked, sliding his hand along her waist and up her back. "You ever think about modeling?" Kate recoiled like she'd been burned. From that moment, she avoided him entirely. So Kate knew her word would mean nothing against the word of the owner's son, so she just endured his harassment. One day, while she was washing the windows, Dan crept up behind her and pressed his body against hers, whispering something vulgar in her ear. "Get off me!" she snapped, twisting away and slapping him across the face. Dan grabbed his stinging cheek, glaring at her, then barked threats as she walked away. "You little tramp, you'll regret that. You had your chance, you should have taken it and thanked your stars I even noticed you. Run while you can, but one day, you won't get away." Shaking, Kate fled to the far end of the house and didn't return to her cleaning until she was sure Dan had left. She felt humiliated, but also scared. This job paid well, and steady work like this was hard to find. Mr. Michael had always treated her with respect. He had never once raised his voice at her. She couldn't bring herself to tell him what his son had done. But Dan didn't stop there. A few days later, the entire house was in chaos. A large amount of money had vanished from Mr. Michael's safe. Dan was the first to point fingers. "Search the maid," he said coldly, eyes gleaming. "She's the only one who's ever near the safe. She knows the code. Who else could have done it? It's not like we have any other staff. The gardener? He never even steps inside the house. I've seen her snooping around, checking pockets, sneaking glances." Kate stared at him, shocked and insulted. But this wasn't the time to argue. Mr. Michael looked deep in thought. He didn't want to believe it. He'd always found her honest and conscientious. She didn't seem capable of something like this. But Dan's accusations echoed in his head. If not her, then who? Seeing the doubt on his face, Kate's eyes filled with tears. "Mr. Michael," she said through a shaking voice, "I swear I didn't take that money. I would never betray the hand that feeds me. Working here, it's been a blessing. You've always treated me kindly. You pay on time. I'd never risk losing that, please. Believe me." She clasped her hands together, nearly dropping to her knees. "I want to believe you, Kate," Mr. Michael said quietly. "But the facts, they're not in your favor. No one else had access, and I don't forgive betrayal. You have two options. Return every cent and leave, or work off your debt. I don't want to see your face right now. Just get back to work before I call the police." Kate swallowed her pain and went back to cleaning, tears falling silently onto the polished floors. Soon she felt betrayed. Mr. Michael had trusted her, yet he didn't even check. He just believed his son. But she understood. He was grieving, and Dan was all he had left. Still, Kate had no way of proving her innocence. She couldn't return money she never stole, and she didn't dare ask Miss Mary for help. The woman had already done too much for her. But in her heart, Kate knew who was behind it. Dan had promised to make her pay for rejecting him. The slap must have bruised more than just his cheek. It had wounded his ego, and now he was getting revenge. In the days leading up to the theft, he'd been oddly friendly, gave her fewer orders, let her leave early. All an act, and she hadn't realized it. But suspicions weren't proof. She needed evidence. And then she found it. During her usual cleaning, she emptied the trash in Dan's room and noticed some torn-up papers. Curious, she sifted through the scraps. Her hands trembled as she pieced them together. It was a debt note, written in Dan's own handwriting, for the exact sum that had gone missing from the safe. Kate knew she should have taken it straight to Mr. Michael, but she decided to give Dan a chance to come clean. That evening she waited for him to return, then walked into his room. "You need to tell your father the truth," she said firmly. "Other people's lives aren't toys for you to play with. You've always had everything handed to you, but not everyone's that lucky. You don't know what it's like to lose everything just because of a lie." Dan scoffed. "Wow, you got guts now, huh?" he sneered. "I don't know how you found out, but I'm not confessing ever." Then he leaned in, voice full of venom. "You learn not to reject me, you orphaned little idiot. We took you in off the street, and this is how you repay us? Go ahead, tell Daddy. Let's see who he believes." So Kate fought hard to hold back tears of rage and self-pity. How could such a remarkable man like Mr. Michael have such a foolish son? But the maid had an ace up her sleeve. She pulled it from her apron pocket. "This isn't funny anymore," she said, unfolding the document in front of Den. "Where did you get that?" "Give it to me," the millionaire's son shouted, grabbing her arm. She cried out in pain, but refused to let go of the paper. "What's going on here?" Mr. Michael entered the room and saw his son, pinning the girl to the floor from behind. "Get up, right now," he ordered. Kate sprang away from Den and handed the document to Mr. Michael. "And what is this supposed to be?" the man asked, shooting an angry glare at his son. Not wanting to witness a family conflict, Kate quietly left the room. Her part was done. The truth came out. Den had lost a large sum of money gambling and borrowed cash using a written IOU. When he lost again, the people he owed didn't take it lightly. There was a deadline and no way to pay. He knew his father was bringing a lot of cash home soon. He planned to steal part of it quietly and frame the innocent maid. 2 birds with 1 stone. Maybe then she'd finally submit to him. Mr. Michael was furious. He couldn't believe his own son could be so deceitful, cowardly, and vile. As punishment, he had Den forcibly enrolled in the military, choosing the toughest unit he could find and asking the commanders to take good care of him. He also froze Den's accounts and savings, giving him only a small allowance from time to time. Mr. Michael then sincerely apologized to Kate and offered her a job as his housekeeper. She no longer needed the agency to find work and could finally build a comfortable life for herself. The orphan forgave Mr. Michael. She understood he had little choice back then. Later on, Kate met a kind and decent man named Dennis and began dating him. Mr. Michael, now like a father to her, quietly had the young man looked into through his connections, just to be sure Kate wouldn't be mistreated again. Thankfully, Dennis passed the check. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a thumbs up and hit the bell so you don't miss more inspiring tales. Wishing you all the best.